You can tell us about the work that Afrika Tikkun does.
So Afrika Tikkun is an extraordinary organization that's been around for the last 20 years, operating out of 5 townships in Western Cape as well as in Gauteng provinces. And our whole reason for being is to enable the 20,000 children and youth with whom we work to become productive citizens of the future.
What are some of the challenges you've seen in terms of fundraising?
It's not as challenging as it has been with other organizations I've had to fundraise for. Some of the challenges that organizations normally face is that they're great at executing on their mission, they're great at delivering the services, but they don't realize or really have the right mechanisms in place to manage financially, right? And so to become sustainable. Like, so for us, for instance, while we are reliant on fundraising, we have created an endowment trust, and the goal of that endowment trust is eventually for us to be able to generate 30 to 40% of our budget through that trust, so that we're not so reliant on fundraising.
As we see economic times, a downturn in the economy.
Sure.
There must be challenges.
Because I've actually trained a number of nonprofit organizations, probably about 200 or 300 of them, and what I found is that around 2010, a lot of them were reliant on government funding, and even a little bit later than that. And so they never had to think about things like branding, value proposition, the things that companies and other organizations have to think about. And so part of that is differentiating themselves. So if you've got all these organizations that are doing incredible work with, let's say, orphan and vulnerable children or HIV/AIDS, it's very hard to differentiate between them, right? So when you're a donor, or if you're coming from the donor's perspective, it's really hard to figure out if you should, fund this organization, the other, and so on and so forth. So that's one. The other is just really understanding as an organization what the donor needs in order to feel comfortable about having a relationship with you, right? So a lot of organizations are very focused on the one-off donation, and it's just the reality of how things are. But the smarter way to go about it is understanding that you're creating a relationship, a long-term relationship with the donor, and they're becoming a partner in your organization. And the other is being accountable and very transparent, right? So in the past, when you're getting government funding, or even in the old model, organizations really weren't accountable to their donors. As long as they seem to be helping and doing something, the donors would really not question anything. Today, in the reality of the marketplace that we operate in worldwide, donors are requiring organizations to be a lot more accountable. If let's say you're funded by Gates or any of those organizations, they actually really are very stringent in terms of reviewing their grantees, and will defund them if they don't, sort of provide them with certain information that they require, and also just making sure that the funds are being used appropriately. I mean, that's really, really important, and constantly reporting back to the donors.
A common misconception that prevails out there is that NGOs just need funding,
right?
But you're alluding to the fact that you also need resources and skills.
Yes.
And how do organizations attract the right skills to be able to be accountable and for governance as well?
Well, I think it really goes back to understanding why you do what you do, right? So the mission drives every decision the organization makes, and that may sound very simple, but if you think about a corporation, it's the same thing, right? And sometimes I teach at a university in the U.S., and I sometimes have the students who are actually practitioners tell me what the mission statement of their organizations are. Seldom can they actually do so. And the reason being that our mission statements are too complicated, right? But if we really delve down and figure out why we exist and what we're trying to accomplish, then it's going to drive all the other decisions that we make and who we partner with. And once we're really clear about who we are, and we figure out the people who are attracted to that, right? So it requires research and so on and so forth. You'd be surprised how many people want to come and help you.
A long-running debate has been one of whether NGOs and aid is something which is sustainable and what Africa needs.
I do believe ultimately entrepreneurship, businesses, jobs, job creation, very, very critical, because if people do not have the ability to provide for themselves and have the ability to make decisions for themselves, then we're actually not going to develop as a continent. But I do believe that because a lot of governments are really not in a position to provide some of the social services that one would expect them to, that's where the NGOs really do play a role.
And how receptive are donors to entrepreneurship, for example?
When you're investing in entrepreneurship, right, you're actually giving someone an opportunity to be able to now become a job creator, right? And so that means that you're no longer that reliant on the donor. And so there's that aspect. And there's kind of a trend towards sort of like venture philanthropy, impact investment. So we're moving away from the traditional foundations that give you money and you produce some kind of result, to they're investing in you. They want you to create something, and then whatever you're creating should generate enough income so that you no longer actually need them, and you're able to sustain yourself on that income and other streams.
And how critical has technology been in fundraising?
It's been a real great game changer. Everyone talks about crowdfunding, right? Everyone's so excited about crowdfunding, but it's enabled by technology. But it's really something that you and I are probably familiar with, where, whether it's in a village setting or if it's in church or in any kind of house of worship, where you pass the hat around. Right? You're getting a lot of little donations from a number of people to facilitate whatever project or whatever it is you're trying to do. The technology just facilitates it. It's really that simple, but it's based on a very fundamental model. Technology then also enables more people to have access and to become philanthropists, right? To be able to participate. And let me give you an example, and I use this very frequently. I know that you must be familiar with M-Pesa, right? The mobile money platform in Kenya. In 2012, Kenya experienced a drought and famine around September 2012. And typically what you would see is the aid organizations would come in, right? The governments would come in. What happened this time around is a bunch of young people mobilized themselves around social media. They actually leveraged Twitter and Facebook and so on and so forth, created a movement, and were actually able to get individuals to donate through their M-Pesa to support the Red Cross.
Thank you so much for your time, and
Pleasure.
wish you all the best.
Thank you.